around. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Big Five and Fast Break News' College Preview Live Show. My name is Mary Kimball. Beyond the Big Five is my sports project, and I am joined with some esteemed colleagues from across the Quadball media sphere who are here to yap about this weekend, present some informed takes backed by facts and lots of film watching and context to hopefully create a really awesome fan experience for people who are walking into this experience a little maybe on the lurker side. So thank you everyone so much for joining me. I'm going to say hi in front of the camera once. Hi. And now I'm going to back up and I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. And Mark, I'm locking eyes with you. So say your name, when you started playing with, and who you're here representing.
Hello, my name is Mark Takachi. I started playing in 2014 for Drexel University in Philadelphia. I'm here representing Massachusetts Quadball Conference, and I'm also the founder of Mighty Tech Media.
Nick Love, started playing back in 2022 for the University of Michigan, here with Fast Break News.
I'm Whitney Ho. I've actually never played, but I'm Texas State Quadball affiliated, and I joined them back in 2024, and I'm also Fast Break News.
I'm Ryan Silverman. I started playing quadball for Brown University in 2020, and I'm the events coordinator for Massachusetts Quadball Conference.
And my name is Ashton. I currently represent Bludger Interference. I started playing quadball right after COVID for Sam Houston. I currently play for Texas Copperheads.
And Jackson, who is joining us from afar, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jackson. I run the Snapshot Quadball YouTube channel. I started playing in 2021 for Baylor, who no longer exists, but still got to support. And I'm excited to chat about hoops.
Okay, so let's kick things off by talking about the last year. Let's assume for 5 minutes that no one knows ball that's watching this or will watch it, but they know what happened until the finals last year. So I'll give just like a brief recap of the championship last year, as it so happens that was about the moment that I was deeply watching college quadball. And I admit part of the reason I'm doing the show is so I can hear from experts about what the last year has been like. So in D2, we had Middlebury toppling Texas. D2 was a little bit of a different experience last year, as if I recall correctly, a lot of teams switched to D2 because of the gender rule change that USQ was phasing out and or was implementing rather, and some teams just weren't quite ready for it, and the rules were a little more relaxed in D2. This year, more teams have had time to adjust, and for various reasons now, we have travel being one of them. We have more teams in D1 than we do in D2. Then on the D1 side, Creighton defeated UVA in a really stunning final, one of the favorite games I've watched over the last year or two. Creighton had it in the bag initially, and then UVA went on a run, and Creighton eventually got it in the bag, and it was a really great way to cap off the weekend. But a lot has happened since then, and I'm going to pick on Fast Break News first. If we can have you talk about how we've gotten briefly to the last college rankings, which you all released a couple weeks ago, which I'll pull up for the group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our Fast Break News college rankings and our club rankings, if you tuned into those, we were really, really happy with those. And we got a really great panel of a bunch of different judges from across the country representing multiple different teams. And that's been a really good insight to see how everyone's feeling about college quadball. We started out the season with, I believe, Virginia ranked #1. And that was a result of their performance at 2025 Nationals, and also a result of Creighton losing quite a few people like Riley Usami, Maddie Monty, TJ O'Connor, Danny Rendon to graduation. So our first ranking was definitely sort of just, who's coming back, who's graduating, who's playing, who's going to be impactful. And then ever since then, we've just been following certain tournaments, keeping up with out-of-region stuff, in-region stuff, just to see how teams have matched up against each other, how we think teams will continue to match up against each other in the future.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, UVA started off as #1, and they stayed there the entire year, particularly because of their dominant performance, both in the App 5 and then at Howard County. And so, props to them for keeping that ranking, and it's up to them to continue that into this weekend. Just also a clarification on like some rankings. They're sent out to the coaches for each team, and so like when comments come up about like, oh, like people are only like watching scores, like that's more on the coaches not actually watching film than it is just about box scores. So just want to keep that as a cool point that, you know, it's the coaches that are watching games and are watching box scores, not us as, you know, just rankers.
Jackson, can you chime in too from more of a bird's eye view? Because I know we have more regional representatives here with MQC and Southwest, but you really take a bird's eye view to quadball and do all sorts of really neat things with analysis and everything like that on your channel. So what's been your key takeaways from the college season so far?
Sure. I'd say the college season this year has been structured around 3 teams in particular. We've talked about Virginia and Creighton already, but also Texas State. All 3 of those have been the main pillars of the college season. You've got Virginia, who's coming back with almost all of their roster from last nationals. They're missing 1 or 2 pieces from there, either because they couldn't be here this weekend or to graduation, but almost everyone from that championship team has come back. Creighton's reloaded with some Blue Jay players, some players from their B team, as well as keeping many of their veterans, and they've been able to remain strong and be largely untested the whole season. And then Texas State, in the same vein, has been the only one to contend with either of them. They lost to Creighton at Diamond Cup earlier in the year, but it was a very tough game, and we've seen Texas State in all their other games be a very strong competitor. And so all 3 of these teams, they only 1 game between them, the Creighton versus Texas State matchup, but they've been dominating their regions all year, and we're finally going to get to see these 3 teams clash against one another. And it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. Can Virginia learn from last year's nationals, a game that's been haunting them for, well, almost a year now? And can they get back there, or does Creighton have what it takes to go back to back? And can Texas State throw their own wrench into things? I think this year has been about those 3 teams in particular. There's a couple other teams like Illinois and Sam Houston that have been fighting to get into that conversation, but those 3 teams are really the 3 pillars of college D1 this year.
Before we move into talking to the Northeast specifically, Ashton, can you talk about what you've noticed from the Southwest, in particular Texas State? I feel like you're only slightly less biased than Whitney because you're a Sam Houston State alum.
He's biased in the other way.
but give us the view coming out of the Southwest. What has it been like this year?
Yeah, I think just like every year, the Southwest is kind of a bloodbath every year. And it's really hard to kind of gauge it, especially from people who aren't actually watching the games, because when you're having to play against, multiple top 10 teams every single tournament, it's really hard for you to really make strides. Even if you are a team that's like Texas or UTSA, you're constantly having to play Texas State every single tournament. It doesn't make things any easier for you. Texas State clearly has been the favorite all year. I don't think they've lost a game to any team in the Southwest this year. And then I think genuinely the college game has really turned into a game of stars, and how many stars you have and how many stars you're able to retain. And Texas State has had some of the same stars since COVID flipped over. They have a lot of vets. They have a lot of people who know how to play the game at a high level, multiple MOQ champions now. So they've just been played at a really high level. They've been playing together as a team and as a unit between their different lines. And I think they're definitely going to be a team that's going to be very difficult to take down if they get taken down.
Yeah, I feel like prior to the COVID era, the person most associated with Texas State was Eric Reyes, who I think just kept pursuing advanced degrees.
Yes, yeah.
and was a really huge component of helping to keep that program together, supporting coaching staff and everything. But now David Avila has been there for a while, but it's not just David who's been an alum of that program for a while. Whitney, can you speak to that a little bit more? We'll move to MQC in a little bit and then talk about like contenders, but who are some of these veterans on Texas State that have been kind of always the bridesmaids, never the bride of the program?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one stat that we like to bring up a lot when we're talking just as a team is that Texas State is the program in US Quadball with the most Final Four appearances and no national championship.
And that goes back deep. Like we're talking like 2013,
like USQ Cup
20,
6,
yeah,
or
2013, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But that's like, it's deep. It's a deep rooted, our culture is so deep. And David has really done a great job of taking the reins at Texas State and having somebody as experienced as he is and also as involved in the quadball world, because he's involved in the national team program. He also has so many experience with MLQ and the Soldados. And he's just been a leader on both of those, and translating that into the college game has been huge for us. But other people definitely include Catherine Hay. She has been a really great chaser for us, and this is going to be her last year because she's graduating. But she was starting on the Soldados this past year. Brandy Gomez, one of the best female college beaters. I'm going to stand on that hot take too. I'm trying to think of those, but we have a lot of people. Like, college is not linear, and I think that's something that we definitely keep in mind, because our journeys are all so different and so separate. And it's definitely been really cool to see everyone progress academically and also build up the team, like watch these vets interact with these younger people and hold it down.
Let's move to the Northeast because we have a little treat to share. So Mark, man of many talents, is basically this era's Billy Quach, I think, in terms of both output but then end product. Hasn't been on Sports Center yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. Mark put together a compilation of footage from D1 champs in it was, oh my gosh, Mark, just take it away. Tell me what we're looking at. What has the MQC season been like? What does it mean for going into nationals? And Ryan, let's hear from you as well.
Of course. So what you're seeing on your screen right now is the Division I MQC champs. That was between RPI and Harvard. That was the best of 3 series for the chance to play Boston University for the finals. And in this matchup, I think between all the 3 teams that attended, we see a lot of their strengths. In this matchup between RPI and Harvard that you're seeing right now, you're seeing RPI, which is a very small team, but a very quadball savvy team. They have a lot of chemistry. They spent many years playing with each other, and they have all learned how to play several different positions. You have Ben Pothrop, who is just a pure point guard, a great passer and shooter, but he doesn't have a problem with picking up a black headband or seeking if need be. And then you have Isabel McCall, who is able to lay out hits as a chaser, is able to do solid beater defense. And what you're seeing right now is Harvard, which is they won the national championship 2 years ago. They had a lot of graduating players. Last year they took a step back, going to D2 college division in nationals. But this year they're back in D1. They look like they could make that winner's bracket, and it's really a core of solid rookies and second-year players with just elite coaching. We all know the coaches for Harvard, Ethan Sturm, Max Havlin, Lulu Shu, but you have just so many new players with such just raw talent, and all they really need to do is just learn how the chemistry works with each other. How to, you have great shooters in players like Elisa C. You have just unstoppable drivers like Kevin who you see right here, Bruce Lowman Stone, who is just a tank. And, props to Zach Donofrio for being able to, just stop him consistently at champs a couple weeks ago. I think it's really only a matter of time before, next year we could see them in the Final Four. It could be 2 years before we see them make another finals appearance with a completely new roster of stars, because you can see stars in the making right here. And then, of course, let's go to Boston University, who going into the spring, they didn't have star players like Evan Skyaraba, who I need to mention, had 47 goals in the fall meets. That's 47 goals across possibly three meets. And they didn't have him. They didn't have their star beater pair, William White and Molly French, but they had Zach Donofrio, they had Ian Cargyle, they had HB Bialawa, who played just great defense on Harvard's up-and-coming chasers. And you can see the coaching, the determination they picked up from the losses that they had to Harvard at regionals. And, they went into their depth. They made all the right beats. They made so many great shots. They caught in a crucial game 1 where they needed to. And even in game 2, when Harvard caught, rookie seeker Toby Cheatham put the game to golden goal. We're about to get to that clip in just a little bit, but Zach right there, put the game on his back. But it wasn't just him making hero plays. It was trust. It was finding new chemistry with his favorite option, Evan Gone, and when it came to the end, he made just the shot at golden goal right there. Absolutely electric to witness in person, and you can only imagine what BU could do at nationals if they had that full team, if they didn't have those players abroad or on co-ops. But I really think that going into their poll, they can, I think they have a shot at beating Mizzou. I think they can take it to Texas State. And at the very least, whatever happens in that game, it can be a statement. But these are the top 3 teams at MQC. That's not even really getting into Brandeis, who just for how the fall played out, they didn't attend D1 champs. But I think in their own right, they have stars at every single position. At beating, you have Ryan Callahan, the best beater in MQC. You have returning chaser Andre Zalowitz, who can just yam it on the top hoop. And star number 1 MQC seeker, Matan Schwartz. I think MQC is going to be very well represented going into this weekend, and I think you're going to see some statement wins.
And Ryan, can you talk about, especially because I know you have a deep playing background with the MQC too. What's it like being a part of the conference? What has it been like being behind the scenes? Because this is another aspect of the college program that, or college experience that isn't necessarily on full display yet, but like we wouldn't have a tournament like nationals if we didn't have the strength of the MQC. So tell us what it's like from your perspective, and how do you think it supports the development of these top teams we're looking at, like Boston and Harvard?
I joined the college growth department this year, and I think something I've realized I've taken for granted with MQC is just with all the teams being so close and the support we have of being able to run conferences almost every weekend, that most of the teams are like half an hour away from, at most like 3 or 4 hours. I think that really helps those teams develop because they get all of these opportunities to play with each other. This year, MQC entered new leadership. Harry Greenhouse retired from the role, which he held for many years, and he did a great job of running it. But I'd also like to shout out Commissioner Vidisha Jha and Co-Commissioner Alex Wicken for just doing a really good job picking up in Harry's place and keeping things running smoothly.
So you mentioned Harry Greenhouse, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Greenhouse Award, because this is an inaugural honor that USQ just announced, or not just announced it. We've known about it for like at least a few months. And this is, for those that know Ultimate at all, this is kind of Quadball's equivalent of the Callahan Award, which is meant to honor a college player who makes outstanding contributions on and off the pitch. So we got a really good overview from Mark on who maybe some Greenhouse Award contenders might be from Texas State, from Whitney, but I'd love to hear from our other panelists. Who are some people that you're looking at for the Greenhouse Award? And I mean, by extension, I feel like this kind of also applies to the national team and the DA, because I feel like if you're good enough to win the Greenhouse Award, you're good enough to be in the high performance program. So let's start with you, Ashton. Give us the Southwest perspective, or maybe you have a take that's outside. You contain multitudes.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people that have played out outstanding, and I think there is someone that I do think is a clear winner when you talk about just strictly playing quadball. That being David Avila. But I think when you turn it into more of a culture change and a culture shift, and you're kind of putting those both together in terms of what they've done just this year, I think you have to look at someone like Nate Targonski, teammate of David Avila, right? Who really this year I saw a lot of growth in as a leader, as a person, as a coach. Really was just able to kind of take the team under their wing and really just kind of shape them from a behavioral standpoint, but also from a standpoint of just being able to play at a high level, right? in the past they've always had that one missing spot, right? Where it's like that one, they had 5 really good players and that one person that you needed to step up. And Targonski has turned into that other person for them, and really has turned into their number 1, maybe their number 2 at times when he's out there. Targonski, isn't on the DA at the moment, which I think is kind of ridiculous. Without a doubt, one of, if not the best college player in the country. And then I think there's a couple other names out there that really have done a great job this year. Maybe some people that maybe wouldn't be at the top of the list in terms of the candidate, but people that I think have stepped up in big roles. One of them being Ariana Zhang out of Illini. I think in terms of just leadership, in terms of gameplay, I covered Chicago a lot over the summer, and her contributions over there were unbelievable. And then sounding a little biased here, but Andrew Acosta out of Sam Houston, just seeing what kind of leader he's become this year, kind of stepping into that role, being both the president and the captain of the club, has really just stepped into his own in terms of being able to be a great leader, being able to bring in a lot of new faces. That's going to help them in the future too. And I think he's done a great job of being able to set a standard for this team and setting them up not only for this year but for the future, even after he graduates after this summer.
Sorry, I need to take a moment to think about this.
We can popcorn over to
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I definitely have a few that I was thinking about. Well, here's the problem, okay, with the Greenhouse Award is that we can only nominate one person per gender identity per team. So we can't nominate both David and Targo. And we're still kind of debating on who we're going to nominate because I think you're right, Ashton. Both of them have contributed to the game in so many ways. Going off of that, though, Ariana was a great shout. I think Ariana has done a lot of amazing work this year. Illini's social media account, 10 out of 10. Love the memes. But also gameplay-wise, I think Izzy Ramirez as well. She has been so huge for us. Even after last year, I know last year was more of her breakout season, but last year she came in as a complete rookie, never played Quadball before, and then by the end of the year, she was starting on a semifinal team and starting on an MLQ team, and won a national championship for MLQ, starting on that team as a first-year player. And she's just amazing in genuinely every way. But going off of that into the DA, because Izzy was at the DA, I think going off, since you talked about Targo, I'm going to talk about Spencer Quintana. Spencer, I believe he's a sophomore, junior? Second year for Sam Houston, and he has become Andrew's almost second in command, and he has been doing amazing work for them this year. He's such a good system player. Like, if you get him some support, he'll go out there and ball. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Texas State beater Kaylee Newman. I don't know how many people know Kaylee Newman, but she's a female beater for Texas State in her second year as well. And she has been huge for us. She's so good at the fundamentals. Her ball knowledge is amazing. And I think she's a very underrated player that should definitely be looked at by the national team.
Yeah. Taking a little bit out the South bias out of it. And thinking a little bit towards the Midwest, like I appreciate the shouts for specifically for like Illini. Like Ariana has taken a huge, like you got to think like they just started last year, right? Playing on like Chicago during the summer, coming in with an Illini. Like Ariana is the point defender on that. Like we're coming at you, right? Also a huge shout out to Veronica Hoffman, Somsarum. Like they literally turned that program around. Like as a player playing against them to then watching their program grow, it's been amazing to watch. Also want to give a big shout to Sam Magner. Like I know Purdue doesn't get a lot of love within like, the Roseville Conference or overall like within the quadball community just because of like their numbers and not being able to play at such a high level. But Sam is an absolute baller. And so like for both the on-field production and off the field, like Sam would be a great shout there. And then I know we're going to talk about like the MQC in a second, but I'll also give a huge shout to Ryan Leary and Carson Sousa for me.
If I could add on, I'm from Brown, so I know the Brown team better than most, and I'm biased. But, like, besides the fact that Carson's probably the best seeker in college right now, like, a large part of the reason why the Brown team is still alive is because of Carson's recruitment efforts. And also, if you enjoy Brown social media, he runs that too.
Yeah, you said it. You said it best, Ryan. Because when you look at what Brown has gone, the lengths that they've gone to with their social media game, but also the website that they've made, it's a lot of production.
That's
effort.
Karsten too.
and even outside of seeking, Karsten, when he's keeping, he brings such an energy. Anytime he gets a stop, he's willing to. He wants to get loud. He wants to bring his team up, and it just. I cannot. I mean, I can think of a couple of great recipients for that award, but I really hope Karsten is in serious consideration. Great point bringing up Ryan Leary. Just great shooter for Emerson. I think her methodology of like figuring out how to tool Emerson's offense. We talked a little bit about this in our commentary series, but how to, along with Ryan Leary and Amiri Rivera-Salah, how to make a cohesive offense when you have those 2 point guards. So you really try to like dig deeper into the atomic with your exact strengths, how you can actually play off of each other instead of your play succeeding at the expense of the other. When I went into the spring and I thought a little bit about the Greenhouse Award, this might be a little bit too obvious. I do have some recency bias towards BU. I'm also a recent BU alum myself. I never played. But when I think about the Greenhouse Award and what it stands for, yes, it's excellence as a player in college quadball, but it's also culture building and how you actually build a team. When I was in college, I think that was around the time Harry was still at UND, and we would always hear about these recruiting or sustainability practices that we would hear from whatever Harry's doing at UND. He was the model for college quadball for so many years, and I see that so much in BUs. How they go about conducting, how leadership goes about conducting their team. It is a huge coincidence. Well, not at all. That was the that was the team that Harry coached for many years, and this is here that he's taking a step back. But when you look at how Zach Donofrio, the star for BU right now, who hit that game-winning shot that we just saw, and HB Bialawa, who is the president, has implemented all of these measures to make the team feel like they really have a groupness, like the BUQ Spotted, where they just post pictures of like seeing them in the wild on campus, or the MA Quad memes page. They are always having fun. And I can tell that it's like infectious to, new recruits. It's really easy to get people on board with that kind of culture where everybody feels so friendly. And off pitch, they're all, roommates. They're all really good friends. They're all cheering for each other, whatever team they go on to next, whether it's USQ club or MLQ or coaching. They always have each other's back. And I cannot think of, thematically a better recipients than those who clearly have learned from Harry Greenhouse himself, although that does seem like just a huge cheat code.
And then Jackson, close us out. We've heard a lot of great names, but I think one of the fun things about the Greenhouse Award that you see with the Callahan is that sometimes it's the best player, but then sometimes it's someone whose contributions maybe are more quiet, but they're still consistent. So what stands out to you? What are some few names you like to drop into the conversation?
Sure. Let me touch on the ones that have been said really quickly. Someone like Donofrio and especially Karsten, if there was a player that was going to win it in D2, I think it would be Karsten. Something I like to look at is impact, not only on the field, but off the field. Karsten brings that. Donofrio brings that for Boston, both in the scoring department and, as Mark said wonderfully, that a culture setter for Boston as well. Donofrio does that so clearly for his team. And like I said, if someone from D2 was going to win it, it would be Karsten. That said, I agree. I think you have to look up the table here, not to discount all of those teams, but I like to look at, people on the best teams in quadball, who do they have that are also making large strides in leadership for their teams and for the game? That's where I look at someone like a David Avila, like a Nate Targonsky, like an Izzy Ramirez, who took the world by storm in her rookie season last year. All of these players for Texas State are great shouts, but I also want to look at Creighton players, people like Derek Deerking, people like Mimi Baldwin, players that are excellent on the field, but have also been great leaders for Creighton as well. People that embody what the sport is about, that determination that they bring for their team. And then people that might fly under the radar because they don't show up on the stat sheet are beaters. Someone like a Nathan Junn for Virginia, I think, is also a great shout. I don't want to say that this is just a chaser award. This is very similar to what you talked about the Callahan in Ultimate, or something like the Heisman in football. This doesn't have to be an offense or quarterback award, as they say. I want to look at the beaters, people that don't always get that recognition just because they don't show up on the score sheet. So people like a Nathan Junn, like a Derek Deerking, people that show up in big, meaningful ways for their teams, I think are also big names to watch.
And now we are going to get into our Division 2 and Division 1 previews. I'm going to turn over the metaphorical mic to Nick and Whitney, who are going to walk us through the pools, what are the best games, top contenders, hot takes, what teams should and shouldn't do in order to get that ring on Sunday. So Nick and Whitney, take it away.
Yeah. So starting off, college D2 is going to be a full round robin. Well, not full round robin, a modified round robin. UTSA is the only team that's going to be playing 4 games on day 1. The other teams are going to be playing 3 games. So they'll try the preference for like teams that they didn't play during the regular season. So all the games in D2, you're going to see different matchups, which I think is pretty exciting to see a lot of different play styles at D2, especially to see how that like compares against conferences. So for the teams, I know Mary's pulling it up on screen. We have UTSA, Minnesota Quadball, which has been consistent between Minnesota, the newly minted Wisconsin, bringing them back, as well as Columbia, Brown, Texas, UCLA, Marquette, and Emerson. So Whitney, I don't know if you have any notes for some of your hot takes or some teams that you're looking to see out of D2.
My biggest hot take is that UTSA should have been given the opportunity to go D1. That is my biggest hot take of the night. And I think part of that comes from me being a part of the Southwest, because I've seen UTSA at every single tournament. I've had conversations with their captain. I know what's going on in their program, but they've really clawed their way back. Like, they were really struggling at the beginning of the year. Their numbers were not great. And then throughout this entire year, and Javi and the rest of the vets have been really fighting to get more people to come out, more women especially. And at Alamo Cup, they actually had quite a few new people turn out, and they looked really great at Alamo Cup. They played Heat really well. They played us really well. It was a great game. And I think that UTSA is definitely going to win out here. But as also to consider, UCLA did come down to Garland and beat UTSA. So I think genuinely my top 2 have to be UTSA and UCLA. I don't really see anybody else besides maybe Brown, depending on how well they do. Those are going to be my top 3 for college D1 for sure. Or D2.
Yeah, I second that. Like, if you look at not the actual numbers and wins and losses, like UTSA and their ability to score and catch flags when it matters, like that means a lot, particularly in D2. A lot of these D2 teams are great flag pullers, and I think better than D1, if I'm being completely honest. And so I think a lot of games are going to come down to who can catch the flag when it matters. I would give that edge to UTSA. I would give it to Brown.
Definitely Brown, yeah.
If UCLA can have good numbers, because, we're in California, it's a closer home tournament compared to others. I think fatigue killed them when they came to Texas.
Yeah.
And so if they can keep that, like, good pace, slow the game down, and, like, play in their game, I think they could easily – like rival against UTSA and Brown, who I think are like some of the top contenders in D2 and potentially take it all. But it depends on, how they manage the flag runner or pitch period for sure.
I will say, I think the team that hasn't been talked about yet is Emerson. I really think Emerson is a dark horse. They have a lot of talent compressed into a small team. And if you saw them play in Vermont a couple weekends ago, they looked very good. But they ultimately had a 7-person roster for most of that tournament, and they just got tired out. I think they're bringing like 12 to nationals, so I would watch out for Emerson. Emerson's the team that's going to get underestimated, and teams will pay if they do that.
I agree. The thing with Emerson is if you don't have someone who plays solid defense on an area, they will run through you, over you. someone who's played for the New York Titans in that kind of role, just being able to launch themselves into hoops. But like I said with the greenhouse segment, is that they're finding, them and Brian Larry are finding more of a region to find an offensive style that works where you can actually work that driving at the hoops. If like Brian can't get a shot, like actually work as part of the strategy instead of the last shot. And then as far as beating goes, Megan Brown, one of the best beaters in MPC, with the stats. Really excited to see she's going to be in the nationals. Obviously, there's some, me and Brian probably have a bias towards Brown. It's basically how much we talk to Carson. And I think that, so Carson's able to, turn it on and focus on, and, there's certain role players that can plug it in. I think they'll be able to turn it on, but I'm not going to discount just because, teams that I'm not out of the region, because I am familiar with the, UTSA's like history of winning this, going to those two finals. They might not have Jay Stewart and Blackfoot, but I trust that, that's a program that teaches like how to catch flags when it matters. And they said, what, Javi's still there?
Javi is still there, yeah.
Yeah, Javi, and I imagine other people who were on that Soldados team last year who have championship experience beating such a good team. I cannot do that, and I feel like that's going to, that's really going to show out in a moment like this.
Yeah, I think the team that I think all of you guys are sleeping on is Texas. I think that when it comes to UTSA, I think the biggest downside is just still their numbers. Even though they have grown, they failed to finish multiple tournaments this year, a lot of which were only 3 or 4 games, and now they're having to play 4 games on top of potentially another 2 the next day. So the big struggle for them is just simply going to be keeping people healthy, keeping people ready to go, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you can't play the game, you can't win. They've had these problems with keeping people healthy, forcing people to play entire games, entire series, entire weekends, right? And that just doesn't really work down here, right? Obviously, you're having to play a lot more games, and you're having to play back-to-back days. Javi is the best player at this level in terms of the D2 level, but Javi can only do so much, and if Javi can be playing Javi can be playing at a really high level, but if you only have 7 players, there's only so much you can really do. With this Texas team, I've seen them grow a lot this year from a leadership perspective and from just a personnel perspective, understanding where certain people need to play. Like they've taken Nico Salinas, they put him at beater, they put him at keeper, they put him at chaser, just trying to find out what works. They have a lot of depth. They have a lot of pieces that can score when needed. Isaac Soltenfuss is a great piece. You have, Peter Mosqueda, who will drive on everybody and anybody. And I think this Texas team really has the depth to go out there and play these games at a high level. And I think they have the talent to really wear teams down. They've played in a lot of tight, contested games that come down to the wire. And, they've won some of those, they've lost some of those. But they've been in those moments. They've tried to win those games. They have high-level seekers in Grayson Floyd. And I think Texas is the most complete team here, with the most potential to go out there and win it, despite maybe not having the star power that some of these other teams have.
I think they're one of the only teams in D2 bringing a full roster, too, actually. So,
I think my other hot take is that, surprisingly, I don't think I'm as hot on Brown as everyone else. Last time Brown played, it was in a best-of-3 against Brandeis, and something that I noticed is that they really struggled to score in the half court, mainly because they weren't really passing the ball. And I think that could pose a difficulty for them in nationals if that's not something they practice over the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think I would agree with your take, Ashton, particularly on Texas, right?
Yeah.
If you think back to when Texas played UCA at Garland, Texas was down at prop. They came back, they caught and scored in a 40-minute game, right? Mm-hmm. That takes a toll on you, like physically, in which, like, to your credit, a lot of these other teams might not be able to do that. And to your point as well with Brown, like that RPI game was sad, particularly for Brown. Like Carson, like 100% credit. Like he was on the field, he scored, or he assisted on every goal and caught. As soon as like Carson went off the field, they went down like 6 goals again. Like the opportunities like for Brown have to come into quadball games and be able to score with Carson off the field and playing in the half court.
Yeah, for sure.
See, I think Brown has the pieces though. Like one chaser whose name I think you're going to hear is Lyndon Ockley. I noticed when they played against Brandeis, she didn't get a lot of opportunities to get the ball, but when she did, she made very good decisions with it. So I think with Brown, it's not that they need to find more pieces, it's that they need to connect the pieces.
Yeah. I think another really important thing to think about when looking at D2 is just like roster size. Like we've already kind of gone through roster sizes, but UCLA being able to bring a full roster, I haven't looked at the official roster document, but they are in very close proximity. UTSA, I believe, is bringing at least 15 people. Texas is bringing a full roster. I think D2
Someone want to phone in Jackson?
Jackson,
you can
you
go.
want to finish the D2 roundout before you go on to D1?
Did our mics die and you couldn't hear us the whole time, Jackson?
It did just now. No, just in the last 30 seconds. I can hear you now, though.
Okay. 1 second. We'll fix this. Okay. That one works for sure, and it has a long cord.
Jackson, if you want to go ahead and start wrapping D2 for us.
Ashton, I missed you on that one.
If you want to go ahead and talk D2, just anything
Sure.
that we haven't covered or whatever you want to cover.
Yeah, so for me, I think someone who's played D2 the last 2 years, the big two things for me are depth and the top star players. And having a big roster matters a lot. So I think, like y'all were saying, teams like UT, who I didn't know they were bringing a full roster, but if they have truly upwards of 18, 19, 20 players, and then someone like UCLA who is in close proximity, that matters a lot. Like my team, Baylor, we carried 11 to nationals last year, and we won one game. Simply because we were tired for most of the time. Having numbers matters a lot. That said, I think, as you mentioned earlier, Nick, the seeking game is going to matter a lot in D2 because I think these games are going to be close. There's going to be a lot of sloppier plays. There's going to be room for teams with those high level scorers to make plays. Someone like a Karsten, who's been so good all year, even if Brown doesn't have the best half-court offense, if they haven't figured that out yet, Karsten is going to be able to score. I don't think it's going to be an issue. And Karsten, I think, is going to be almost a guaranteed flag catch in every game that Brown plays. Yes, there's a lot of talented seekers in D2, but I think Karsten is one of the better ones. And catching the flag is also a very big thing. So for me, this is Brown's tournament. I think teams like a UT or a UTSA could do it. I'm going with Brown simply off the back of Karsten. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone that has a lot of depth, such as a UT, is able to make a run.
D1. Let's do it. Okay, D1. All right. D1 preview. We got a lot for this one. I don't know if you guys tuned into Whitney and Nick's declassified USQ qualifier guide, but me and Nick really went into like really in-depth predictions for how we think this season's going to play out. But I think I should just get this on the table right now. Texas State's going to win it all. But I mean, obviously, you've got the top three teams. You got Texas State, Creighton, and Virginia. And I think my biggest hot take this year, from an unbiased standpoint, is that this is one of the most even years of college quadball that we've seen. I think genuinely Virginia, Creighton, and Texas State each have like such a great opportunity to take it home this year. And I think it really depends on how day one's going to go. I think whoever gets that number one seed coming out, whoever takes care of business and pool play the best, that's going to be the team that we're going to see in the final, and that's going to be the team that takes it home.
Yeah, I know, Mary, you just pulled up the pool, so you'll be able to see those, particularly for Pool A and Pool B. They'll be able to play each other for that. For Pool C and Pool D, they'll play each other, and then they'll play one cross game. So Pool C team will play a Pool D team, Pool D will play a C team. Yeah, I agree with Whitney in that entire thing. Like, this is the most even you'll see it, where literally depending on how they clean up in day one depends on that number one seed who has the easier spot to get to that finals, and particularly who's going to really be fighting through that bottom half of that one seed to play another one seed and play a really strong two seed. And so it really depends on how they're going to play against their pool. And for me, as again a person that's not as biased as Whitney, like, I think I'm gonna have to give it to Creighton for this, and genuinely it's because they took care of Texas State. We haven't seen UVA play a top caliber team this year, because Rutgers slipped up and down this entire season. And then they played Brandeis, and in that first like 10 or 12 minutes, it was basically tied, and then they kind of pulled away at the end, which is credit to UVA. But I want to see a little bit tougher competitiveness, particularly out of UVA, and so. I think they're going to get challenged in the Illini, which could be an upset in my opinion. But we'll really have to see what that looks like on day one.
And then going through the pools, I don't know if there's going to be too much yapping from me specifically, but I think Illini and UVA, that's definitely going to be the best game of day one for sure. Hands down, I will be there. I will be watching. I will be chirping. Taunting's not legal in USQ, is it? It's legal here. It's legal. But yeah, but I think that's going to be the best game of day one. And I think obviously my locks for going into the competitive bracket on day two, UVA, Creighton, Texas State. I'm also going to give Illini a lock, and Brandeis. I think Brandeis will definitely take care of business on day one and head into day two on a really good spot. And then I think those other three spots definitely come down to Boston, Harvard, Sam Houston, Crucio, Rutgers. I think it's definitely a toss-up to see who's going to get into that final spot.
Yeah, so in my personal opinion, I actually kind of disagree with you guys in terms of thinking that it's wide open. I think there's two, maybe three contenders right now. Two being Texas State and Creighton. I don't think UVA really has a chance to go out there and beat either one of those teams. Biggest reason is because I feel like they're way too streaky as a team. So they go on hot streaks and then they go on cold streaks. And against Creighton, against Texas State, you can't do that. You have to be hot the whole game. And that just doesn't really happen with them. They're too reliant on a couple key pieces, and I know they're getting back Rhett, which is going to be big for them. But at the end of the day, you can't just rely on a couple people. We saw that last year in the Creighton final, right? They relied on, their big six for basically the entire end of the game. They almost got there, but it just wasn't quite there. And then now they lose Zan going into this weekend, obviously the whole year. But it's just so I just don't think that they have quite the pieces to be able to go out there and beat a team like Creighton, who has disciplined players at every position, who has the athletes to be able to compete with someone like Joey Bay, and keep him under bay and really just force him into making bad plays, right? We see how good Joey Bay is. We know how good he can be, but when he's out there trying to be the hero, trying to do everything for the team, it turns into negatives for them a lot of the time. And that's where a team like Texas State, a team like Creighton, who have veterans who know how to beat you through those mistakes, are going to come in there and take those. So in my opinion, I do think Texas State will end up being the one seed when it comes down to all college division, just based on who they have to play on day one. And then Creighton and Virginia will be on the other side of the bracket. But that makes things difficult for, those two teams, right? Creighton and UVA are going to have to go through a bloodbath with each other, then have to go against Texas State and make it even harder for them, right? So like what Whitney said, I think whoever comes out of this as the number one seed has a major advantage, because after you get through those two teams, I think things get a lot easier for a lot of these teams, right? There's a clear second tier, right? And then there's a clear everyone else. But on your point of best games day one, Harvard Sam Houston is going to be an amazing game. They played each other in full play, or they played each other every year since we went to Philadelphia, and every year that's a tight game. And realistically, going into this weekend, that could determine who makes it to the bracket, who doesn't, right? And then I think the next big game that I think everyone needs to be watching is Boston and Texas State. That's going to be a big fight. I think Texas State will win the game, but I do think Boston has a lot of key pieces that go out there and play hard and win games for them. Texas State really wins from an athleticism perspective, but I think Boston wins from a team plays perspective, especially when you get down to further in depth. I think that game's going to matter a lot for both of these teams, and really any game between Pool C and Pool D, between the 2 and 3 seeds of all, like any combination of that is going to be very crucial for these teams, because obviously going into pool play, only 2 teams make it out of each pool. So a team like Crucio, I think, drew the short end of the year, or a team like Mizzou, or like whoever doesn't make it out of Pool C or Pool D. I mean, all 6 of those teams are good teams that deserve to make it to the next stage. So all these games really, really matter when it comes down to it.
We need someone and is your mic on?
Hey Jackson, do you want to chime in?
I hear you now.
Okay.
I would, yes.
This one's working. This one's working. Those are working.
So for me, I agree with Ashton that this is actually more of a 3-team race than it is an even split. I think this is Virginia, Creighton, or Texas State. One of those 3 will be the champion this week, and I feel pretty confident in that. But I disagree, actually, that Texas State has the easier path to be the 1 seed. I think Creighton actually has that path pretty easy, because I don't see, out of Harvard, Vermont, and Sam Houston, I don't see any of those teams are going to be able to put up a ton of goals against Creighton, which is going to give them a better point differential going into bracket play. Whereas at Texas State, I could see someone like a Boston or a Rutgers giving Texas State, giving them a run, not to scare them and win, but enough to take away enough goals to where Creighton gets that 1 seed. So as I see it right now, Creighton's going to have the 1 seed. They're going to be on the preferred side of the bracket. Virginia and Texas State are going to have to go through each other in the semis. I think that favors Creighton in the potential finals matchup. That said, we did see Rhett Krovitz is on the roster for Virginia. That's a big piece. They don't have Chantal Sid-Lars, as far as I'm aware, but having Rhett is a very big piece for Virginia. And so I think Virginia is still right there with Creighton and Texas State. Ashton, I know you said you're a little bit lower on them, but I think any of those 3 teams can win. And I think Virginia has the will to win at this point. I think being second place, being that close to winning, yes, they're a streaky team. We saw them go down, 10-0 to start the finals last year, and then storm all the way back, make it a tie game, only lose by a couple of goals. If Virginia can catch lightning in a bottle and be strong on day 2, I think Virginia, just fueled by, honestly, last year's disappointment, that might be enough to propel them to the win. I think Creighton is set up the best to do it because they won't have to play Texas State or Virginia in the semifinals. But I think Virginia absolutely has the ability to do it. One team I do want to shout out, someone mentioned them already, is Brandeis. I predicted them on my show. I think they're going 3-0 in group play. I think they're beating Blue Jay. They're going to beat Rutgers again. I'm a lower on Missouri this year, so I think Brandeis is going 3-0, which may give them a decent seed heading into bracket play. Maybe they draw someone, maybe a Harvard or a Sam Houston, someone that's closer to their level that they could beat in a semifinals run. So I think Brandeis is absolutely a dark horse in this thing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the semis come Sunday.
Looking at their cross-pool matchups, so, in pool they have Rutgers, so they've already, had convincing wins over. Blue Jay, not worried about those, but then they play Mizzou. And I have to say, out of the pool C teams, I would probably put Mizzou just at the bottom. I do that not as a shade to them, more so just this is a year after really key graduations, one of which is the US national team player in Lauren Smith. And I think that this is just Brandeis just been on the upswing. And it's unfortunate that we had a meet, that FUC had a meet canceled in February, and they went straight from the performance of qualifier to going into the 4th and 5th place games against Brown, because they really couldn't get, if that tournament was held. It was canceled in Rhode Island. They would have had that shot to get some wins there, go to B1 champs, pull up this and win in the weeks right before nationals. But to the people here, I'd be Brandeis up. I think before the segment even started, I would say if I had to pick an MQC team to make a deep finals run, it would not be one of the teams that actually went to B1 champs. And I do think that's Brandeis. In BU's case, I said that I think they have a chance to put up a decent statement game against Texas State. Maybe not a win, but it will still be a struggle because as of a few weeks ago, they're used to playing, really tough games on that. and it could spoil Texas State's seeding. Maybe they put up at least maybe Zach puts up a really good defensive showcase and keeps the quadball points from getting run up. And this is a situation where I think that I am high on UVA, thematically speaking, because I like the idea of the comeback story, and I've seen them do bracket events for many years. I think that if they are going to have a path to win the finals, it's one, Brett shows up. It's good to hear that he's rostered. Going into pool play, they need to, they can't hold back in the quadball points against the Illini, and they need to anticipate for a bracket scenario where they can face the Illini again. But in those games, they need to put up a hell of a fight there. They need to do what they do best and just run the score up against Bristol and RPI. And in Virginia's case, their biggest weakness, one, is their depth. Two, they're not a catchy team. We've never seen them win, or maybe the San Jose game two years ago. They were able to win based off those 35 points from the catch. But it's I was recording that game. I wasn't focused on the secret because everybody knows that UVA is not a team that is known for making those big stick scratches. They're just gonna run the quad ball down your throat and hope that you eventually submit. So they didn't go into the finals last year facing that much resistance. They did against Texas State in pool play. You see some posts where Nathan Jones was absolutely clamped by players like Bobby Law, and it's just a simple defender. So if you're able to trap Nathan Jones like that, you're good to be able to shut them down. And to the point of Joey Bay, in the MQC Discord, going into qualifier, I said that if you find yourself playing against UVA, foul bait Joey. And in the finals, Callahan did just that. And they stayed in it. It's a lot just like that. But up until then, it was convincing. So you're right, UVA. It's automatic until they face some real adversity. So you can finally learn the lesson this time. And as far as Creighton goes, I don't know about Creighton. I just know that they're a factory. I know they just put out solid teams every single year. They're really good players. They have this legacy of excellent players, USA players, and stellar coaching. They're always going to be regardless of how much maybe I don't know this year, but I know that they're always going to be anything that's coming out. And then we could run into we could very well be on a collision course to something that just played out exactly like last year, where UVA goes on a whole run, has to be some practical games, and then they get stuck for the first 10 minutes. But that's all they need for it to help them out. Because last year, it really would have helped if they had a reliable season. But they were also seeing these bad Walters, so
Yeah, on your point, before I pass it over, I just want to say, in my opinion, the team that's going to win between the two and I guess three, if you want to count Virginia, is going to be the team that's the most disciplined. It's the team that's not, fouling people. It's a team that's playing smart, right? We saw Creighton earlier this year win a game with 6 cards or something like that. That doesn't normally happen, right? We've seen UVA lose games because they were getting carded out. We've seen Texas State lose a game at the buzzer because they got carded, right? Those are things that happen, right? And they happen at crucial points. And whoever is able to keep their players on the pitch the longest I think is the team that's going to win.
Yeah, and I think to Pool A, I know Mark mentioned about Virginia running the score up against RPI. I do have Virginia winning that game, but I would not estimate RPI. I think one of the most electric games I've watched this year was a Harvard versus RPI game where RPI was able to pull away. And I think Harvard, we can all agree, is a top 10 team. RPI is capable of beating very good teams, and I don't think Virginia can really count on bringing up the score against the teams in the bottom of the pool.
You want Jackson to give any? Talking to Mike. Jackson, what are some of your final thoughts on the nitty-gritty of D1?
Sure. I think someone said it earlier that Pool A is going to be the most interesting. Virginia should, in theory, go 3-0 in this group. Illini can probably give them a run. You think about the top 3 teams we've been talking about, Virginia, Creighton, Texas State. Illini might be number 4. And if they want to make a run to the semifinals, it starts on day one. Set the tone early, prove that you can do it against one of the top 3 teams, and at least make Virginia sweat in that game. And if they can win it, then all the more power to them. One team that I'm looking at that can upset that, though, is Crucio. They're going to have Titus Chan and Zachary Blue, the two-headed monster that they have, and that's going to be enough to run up the score and give Illinois trouble. I think Illinois got some of the best beaters in the country, right up there with Creighton. But when you have a top 2 like Crucio does that are so hard to stop, Crucio is a team that I think can pull an upset. And if there was a dark horse team to make a run to bracket play, because I agree, Crucio did draw kind of not a great pool here with Illinois and Virginia in their group. That said, Crucio is a team that can pull an upset in Illinois, I think. And I would love to see it. I think Zachary Blue has been one of the best watches, as well as Titus Chan. They've both been excellent players. And Crucio as a team has built well over the last 2 years, a team that's grown naturally and been able to add more players as they go along. And just see this thing blossom into a D1 bid. Crucio is a team that I'm rooting for this weekend to do well. I hope they do well. It sucks that they might end up going 1 and 2, because I think if they can snag one of those at large bids, grab the 8 seed, I would love to see what they look like in bracket play. Crucio is a team that I'm looking at, though, to maybe cause an upset.
I also think something that's I feel like we haven't touched on a lot that I was thinking about a lot on my way over here is Pool B, because we talked a little bit about Harvard, a little bit about Sam Houston, but I mean, I think we are all forgetting, and I know I'm Texas State, so it's kind of crazy that I'm even saying this, but Sam Houston beat Texas State at the beginning of the year. They came out strong. They came out heavy. Andrew and Spencer, those 2 guys are enough. Like, if you give them a lane, Andrew and Spencer, they can make things happen. And I also think Harvard, they have an elite coaching staff. And I don't know if you guys read the Fast Break News Cup blurbs that we just recently published. If you haven't, you should go read them. But I wrote the one about Harvard. And I think Harvard has the fundamentals. They have great fundamentals. They're just missing that final piece of athleticism. So I think that if they've spent this past season, like especially in spring and post-qualifier, really toning in on that, and continuing to further their decision-making and listening to like their vet coaches like Ethan Sturm, Lulu Shu, Max Havlin, those are 3 elite coaches right there that I really think Harvard and Sam Houston could give Creighton a lot more trouble than we're giving them credit for.
Yeah.
We're at an hour. Okay. We're at an hour, and I feel like we could go another one. So I'm gonna put our esteemed panelists on the spot. I want to know your final 4 picks for D1, and I'm gonna start with Jackson. You got to commit. Who is in your final 4 bracket this weekend?
For me, it's hard not to pick the top 3. Virginia, Creighton, Texas State. Those 3 are all going to be there. My 4th pick, purely based off bracket play, because I think they might have a good seed because of it, I'm going with Brandeis. I think they're going to go 3-0 in groups, and I think that might draw them a pretty good matchup in the quarterfinals. So give me Brandeis. If it's not them, it's going to be Illinois. But I'm going Virginia, Creighton, Texas State, and Brandeis.
Mark?
It's so easy to just say same, because I am sold on Brandeis getting into that Final 4. I'm just going to make it a little different. I'm still going to pick the same top 3, but I'm going to say that BU keeps up momentum and finds its way into the Final 4. I don't know how, it just will.
Yeah. Jackson, I think I'm going to say same. But I think I'm going to do it differently, where I think Illini is going to come a little bit hot at UVA and match them in the beater game early on day 1 for their first game. And game Illini will win, and then they'll still both make it to the Final 4.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Texas State, Creighton, UVA, and Illini. I believe in Illini, and that's not a testament to Brandeis, okay? I think Brandeis is just as good, but if it came down to it, I think Illini has been more consistent for longer than Brandeis. This Brandeis team is super, super young. This is a lot of players who have never played at Nationals before, and I think that Illini does have a little bit of an edge over them for that.
I think I'm going to go with the crowd in that I think Virginia, Creighton, and Texas State are all going to make it to the Final 4. But I think Pool D is very dicey. I think all 3 of those teams are very equal in terms of their playing ability. So I think whoever wins Pool D is going to ultimately make it to the Final 4, which, boring take, I think it's going to be Brandeis.
Yeah, so for me, I think it comes down to just kind of trying to think about this a little logically, right? in terms of who's going to be the 4 or the 5 seed, right? Or more or less than who I think are the best 4 teams. Obviously, we all know who the top 3 teams are and who it probably will be. But then it comes down to who do we think are going to win those matchups, or who we think are going to win the matchups by enough to be the top 2 seed or potentially the 1 seed of the pool that doesn't have one of the top 3 teams. And to me, looking at it, it can only be 1 of 3. It can only be 2 or 3 teams: Illini, Brandeis, and Sam Houston. And to me, I think when it comes down to it, in terms of what matchups are looking like, how hard some of these matchups are going to be, I think it's going to be Illini and Brandeis, and I do think Illini takes the game.
Well, you heard it here, folks. We have strong consensus. I'll come and frame this time, kind of. We have strong consensus about the top 3. Not sure about that 4. Tune in this weekend. US Quadball Cup in Roseville, California. If you're a Bay Area native, this is a great time to see quadball in person. If you're going to watch online, I think USQ is streaming every pitch with the more upgraded setup for pitches 1 and 2. So you have no excuse. Watch some games, have some fun, and thank you so much to my panelists for joining. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. Good night.
Thank you for having us. Good night.
Thank you.
Ending stream.